For this video, I'm going to be covering an article done by Georgi Stankov, MD, Dr. Georgi Stankov. You can find his website at Stankov's Universal Law Press, The New General Theory of Science of the Universal Law. And this article is going to be titled, How to Interpret Correctly the Clinical Symptoms of Your Light Body Process. He wrote this in September of 2011. And I will preface by saying that he talks a lot about the big shift that was supposed to happen in 2012. I just want you to remember as I read this article, and he touches on that several times, that whether we actually went through this in 2012 and we are just now realizing it, that could be open to debate, or I was told in many of the messages that I receive, which I get these weird messages, as my viewers know, I was told that we were granted a divine dispensation, whatever that means, but that we were given a delay so that more and more of us would be allowed to go through this process in a much better way. I was told that so many of us that the control techniques used were so deceptive and so controlling and so invasive in every aspect of our lives that so many people would not have been able to achieve this in the way that they were supposed to because of the interference patterns. So that being said, everybody, use your own inner discernment on what resonates with you. But I have tons of people, especially in the last couple of weeks, as there's been a huge acceleration in energies with this happening as more and more light floods the planet and the gamma waves become more integrated within all of us. More enlightenment, or you could say awareness, is happening, and more people are becoming aware of this light body process that is happening to many on the planet. It will not happen to all. Not everybody is choosing to ascend or transcend or encompass their divinity, welcome their Christ self, whatever you want to call that. It's got many different names and titles. Some people call it rainbow bodies, light bodies, the crystalline shift, whatever floats your boat. But as more and more people are becoming aware of this and visually and physically seeing these symptoms or changes, I think it's a really good time to bring forward this article, which is, for me, the very best information I have found regarding some of the physical symptoms associated with what I was personally seeing. Again, I can only go by my personal experience when I tell those tales. But this is an article that was written a few years ago by somebody who'd been studying this process for a very long time. He went through his light body process back in '99, I believe he states. So again, take what resonates with you and leave the rest. But I think everybody should at least, even if what he says in the beginning and the introduction throws you off a little bit because you are subscribing more to a religious vibe, I would say bear with it and hear out the totality of the article if you can, because many are experiencing these physical symptoms, and many Western science doctors are not treating them accordingly, and some of these don't need to be treated. That being said, I also want to just put a disclaimer out there. Don't sue me because you decide to listen to this article and then not go to your doctor. Like I said, take what resonates with you and leave the rest, but your physical body and your energetic bodies are your own responsibility. So if you don't go to the doctor and end up having needed to, don't sue me. That's what I would say. So take it, for what it's worth. Moving on. I will also let you know in the beginning, I will be breaking down this article into parts as it's a lot to take in. I also apologize in advance for any blunders that I may have with wording, as there's a lot of what I would say are $5 words in there. And it's a mouthful. A lot of this is what I would say. So take what resonates, like I said, for the 13th time, leave the rest. And so I hope you stay with me for all of the parts of this. For the initial part, I'm just going to do the introduction, and I'm going to be doing the first chapter, which is why you should not trust your doctor when you're in the light body process and experience various clinical symptoms. So again, I ask that you bear with me and hear the article in its totality before you judge it. Introduction. The information given in this article is based on my own personal experience with the light body process, also known as the LBP, since I entered the last and most intensive phase in 1999. I finished my LBP on October 13th, 2010, when I ascended to the higher realms, but was asked to return back to Earth and help humanity in the last crucial and rather vulnerable phase associated with the preparation for the shift and ascension of Earth and mankind in November of that year. I have already depicted some of these experiences in my publications on the LBP, light body process, and the role of the left versus right brain in this process. I will just add side notes as we go through too in a few places. Everybody knows I have some opinions. Anybody who has not done some right and left brain balancing, what you want to call it, meditations or maybe frequencies to assist with that, I'd highly recommend that at this time. It will really help you with this process. Moving on. In this article, I will concentrate on the clinical symptoms that are associated with the LBP, light body process, which I have so far omitted for good reasons. I did not want to forge the hypochondriac tendencies in my readers. However, the huge high-frequency waves that engulf Earth and humanity in the last several months are exponentially amplifying the progress of the LBP in all light workers, starseeds, and many other more evolved human entities, so that many of them have already entered this last intensive phase of the LBP, which is associated with various, often severe clinical symptoms. I can attest to that completely. And I would also like to add a side note. I was told that there are 3 waves, and I'm not referring to Dolores Cannon's book on the 3 waves of volunteers. I'm referring to something different. But I was told that there would be 3 waves of the people that would awaken. And it sure seems that the people that I know who have awakened all fall into these 3 time dates. There were 3 specific time dates. I fell into the March, I believe it was 2016 time date. There is one in late 2015. I want to say it was September, maybe 2015. Then it was March 2016. And I want to say that the last one just happened not very long ago. But with that being said, how do I say this? The acceleration of this process or the intensity is different for, I believe, all the different phases. The first wave that went through it, they took years, or they took a much longer time to integrate this process, and they had a much rougher time, many of them. Some of them had, for certain aspects of this, a year process with that. Whereas the second wave, it was a little bit easier, maybe in a shorter duration and more intense in that shorter duration. And then this third wave has much, much less time to accomplish this. Now, that being said, everybody does this in their own time, but they have much less time to accomplish this. And so a lot of what I'm seeing right now is that their symptoms are much more intense in this process. That also being said, the 2 waves that went before, we call them, forerunners for a reason. A lot of times it's explained like we were in the desert, or not the desert, but in the, rainforest, where you can't even make a path through because it's so thick with foliage. And so the way it was described to me is that some of us had to go first with machetes to create the path for the ones that went behind. And it does to me seem like that is somewhat true. You'll find what makes the most sense to you in this, so just bear with me. These I will discuss in a more scientific manner in the article as to take away your fears and give you some confidence in the appropriateness of these rather debilitating somatic conditions while your carbon-based bodies are being transformed into crystalline light bodies. These you will enjoy after ascension, beginning with the Stargate 111111 in November of that year. Before I proceed with this topic, let me be clear in advance on one major issue of vital importance to humanity: why you should not trust your doctor when you are in the light body process and experience various clinical symptoms. I can attest to that on a side note as well, because if I had listened to my doctor, I would be dead. If I had taken all those antibiotics and antifungals and antiparasitics like they wanted me to, I wouldn't be standing here right now. In fact, I started my dog on that protocol, and I had to pull the antibiotics the first night because he started having seizures and would have died, I have no doubt, had I continued him on that. And yes, animals are going through this as well, just so we can be very clear about that. Current established medicine has no idea of the light body process and the underlying biochemical and energetic processes which involve the transmutation of your DNA and your cell metabolism, and the total restructuring of your chakras, thus changing dramatically the energetic tissue of your bodies. In the first place, medicine and bioscience have virtually no idea as to how the metabolism of human cells and the body operates and how it is regulated. All doctors exert their profession in a total ignorance with respect to the nature of biological matter. When you go to the doctor, you do so because you consider yourself to be incompetent to deal with the alleged disease or symptoms you suffer, and thus you delegate your personal power over your body to the, quote, expert, who is supposed to know more about your organism than you as a patient. At least you must believe that your doctor is a better expert than you are, otherwise you will not attend his practice. And just as a side note, it got to the point where my doctor just started Googling stuff. Great. If you can Google stuff, so can I. I can do that from home. Thank you very much. Just saying. This is probably the greatest and most grievous blunder of humanity in these times. You must finally realize that your doctors know less than you about your body in particular and about any biological body in general. In your fear that something must be wrong with your body, you simply forget for a moment that you are immortal, highly creative, multi-dimensional beings, and thus sovereign masters of your physical vessel, which you have created to experience your illusory separation from the source in the 3D density of Earth. The latter is on the cusp of leaving this density and will be catapulted in November of this year, they're talking about 2011, in the 4th and 5th dimension when the Stargate 111111 will be opened. I have discussed this most dramatic cosmic event in my last 3 articles on Elenin, I must spell that, E-L-E-N-I-N, the magnetic pole shift, and in my last article, Interview with the Octurians, on the shift and ascension of mankind and Gaia in November of that year. Most of the doctors you visit when you feel ill are young souls and completely ignorant on the light body process. Yeah, they don't teach that in medical school, just side note. And its implications for you as incarnated entities, as well as for the whole of mankind. Most of my colleagues are so dumbed down by the current flawed medical education and healthcare system that they are completely blind to the plethora of spiritual information that floods the internet in these days about light body process and ascension of humanity to the 5th dimension. In the first place, the kind of medicine they represent is completely flawed. Although my colleagues, the doctors, have described and introduced thousands of new diseases and syndromes in the last 70 years since the end of World War II, which they have designated with their personal names in an act of absent scientific modesty, they always forget to tell their patients that they actually do not know the true cause of any disease, that they are treating with fervor and very often with a touch of arrogant aggressiveness and deliberate professional malignancy. To this I shall say much more below. In order to substantiate my statement, I would recommend my readers to check the latest edition of the Voluminous Standard Textbook for Physicians, Harrison's Principles of Internal Medicine. You will not find there a single disease or a syndrome, the etiology of which has been definitely determined. You will only find hypotheses and inconsistent facts about the origin of diseases. You can then go to another standard textbook on therapy, Goodman and Gilman's The Pharmacological Basis of Therapeutics, and you will again discover that all the doctors and pharmacologists who treat you with numerous drugs do not have the faintest idea how they function in the body and what, if any, positive effects they exert upon your disease. If you need more proofs on why all doctors and bioscientists are completely ignorant on the true nature of biological matter, I would recommend you to read my scientific book on medicine and bioscience, The General Theory of Biological Regulation. At this place, I would like to make my readers aware of one simple and self-evident fact, which, surprisingly, cannot be perceived by most people nowadays. Up to the present day, bioscientists and doctors have failed to render a valid and objective definition of what is health and what is disease. How can we humans discern between the state of health, which is currently associated with the absence of symptoms and complaints, and the state of disease, which is associated with numerous symptoms, complaints, and impaired physiological functions, which make you run to the doctor? Please observe that you may be severely ill in the absence of any symptoms and complaints, as is, in this case, with most cancers and diseases in the early stages. Vice versa, you may have complaints or even symptoms, but you are nonetheless quite healthy, as is the case with most people when they fully enter the light body process. Without the existence of a clear-cut definition of health and disease, actually nobody should be allowed to exert the profession of a physician or a healer. I hope that you now begin to comprehend the cause for the current great confusion of humanity with respect to health and the light body process. You can check the numerous volumes on medicine in any scientific library or on the internet, and you will be surprised to find out that humanity has not yet established a valid criteria which tells us when we have left the normal healthy state of biological regulation of the body and have entered the state of an impaired, dysfunctional biological regulation and disease that needs a treatment. This finding is extremely important for all of you who have entered the light body process, as you already experience, or will very soon experience, a prolonged episodes of body transformation, which are associated with numerous symptoms that may mimic the condition of one of the numerous diseases described in the textbooks of your ignorant doctors. In fact, these are just physiological adjustments of your bodies to the high-frequency energy waves that flood your physical vessel through the now fully opened 7 body chakras, thus building your new crystalline light bodies of ascension. Your bodies are existing in a perfect harmony with the all that is, which is the sole achievement of your soul and its astral programs regulating your organism. The soul, or the higher self, regulates the biological processes of the organism through the 7 body chakras, with the help of a very complex system of energetic input-output data stored in the ethereal and higher frequency bodies of the incarnated entity. It consists of infinite energetic feedback mechanisms, which are more complex in each individual organism than the whole computer system of the internet with all of its interlinked servers, programs, and the like. Therefore, it is not at all surprising that your doctors have virtually no idea about the regulation of your bodies. In their exuberant ignorance, they massively intrude in your bodies by employing numerous deleterious surgical and diagnostic procedures and obsolete medical treatments with drugs exhibiting many life-threatening adverse effects, while your doctors are insidiously manipulating your mental and emotional helplessness as a patient. This delegation of your power to other less evolved human entities disables your intrinsic ability to heal yourself effectively with the help of your soul, which is in fact the only way of real healing. Please do not forget that the soul is the sovereign creator of the human body and that it can only be healed if the soul gives her or his permission. This is what the free will of humans is actually all about. As I proved in an irrevocable manner in my scientific work, The General Theory of Biological Regulation, about 90% of all drugs currently registered and available on the market are cell-inhibiting drugs. I'm going to say that again. Cell-inhibiting drugs, and thus increase significantly mortality and morbidity in all patients. This fact has been independently confirmed by many excellent double-blind placebo-controlled clinical trials, which have been published in peer international medical journals such as The Lancet, Internal Medicine, and New England of Journal Medicine, etc. I quote in my book more than 50 pivotal trials that confirm in an impeccable statistical manner that such cell-inhibiting drugs as beta blockers, antiarrhythmics, antibiotics, chemotherapies, non-steroidal antiarrhythmic drugs, I think I said that wrong. You know what I mean. Non-steroidals. How's that? Please observe that their very names already imply the knowledge that they are cell-inhibiting drugs. They cause more deaths in patients than compared to those treated with placebos. That is to say, with no active treatment in the sense of current pharmacology. The placebo effect is already considered in the statistical evaluation by the double-blind design. All trials proved that between 1% and 3% of the tested patients are killed by such cell-inhibiting drugs. When you extrapolate these figures to the worldwide patient population treated extensively with such cell-inhibiting drugs, you will easily find out, just as I did in the early 90s, that humanity is a collective victim of the greatest genocide in the history of this planet, committed by doctors, pharmaceutical industry, and healthcare systems. The latter is just like the financial system, firmly in the hands of the powers that be, the Orion Reptilian Empire. This you can read in my last book on Gnosis. I don't know if I said that right. Gnosis. I don't know how to say that. It's too silly. It's entitled The Cosmic Laws of Creation and Destruction. Every year, millions of innocent and ignorant patients are exterminated on a massive scale by the Western type of healthcare system around the globe. This is done at the expense of taxpayers who are, in addition, impoverished or ruined by the exponentially growing costs of this disastrous system, as is currently the case in the USA, where the healthcare system is already collapsing under the burden of unlimited financial debt. This genocide on humanity was deliberately instigated for two major reasons. One, the powers that be and their human minions in the healthcare sector, up to the top of the political elite in every country, want to exterminate as many human beings as possible in the end times. The reason for this crime is that because of the rapidly growing human population in the end times, when many human souls want to participate in the cosmic event of ascension, the Greys/Anunnaki and the reptilians are stretched thin and can no longer effectively enslave humanity as they have done this in the past. Thus, they urge their human minions in the pharmaceutical and healthcare sector to develop only such treatments and therapeutic procedures that essentially will kill the patients. Just for your information, when I was born 60 years ago, the human population on Earth was about 2.5 billion people. Today, it is estimated to be 7 billion. This explains the dilemma in which the powers that be are trapped in the current end times. Number two, the second reason why the dark forces have developed this insidious pharmaceutical industry, producing only poisons for the humans and the current healthcare system of indoctrinated doctors and involuntary proxies of the powers that be, performing uncritically numerous medical interventions in the patient's body in a state of complete ignorance with respect to the astral regulation of the human organism. It is to inhibit the light body process in the broad population, i.e. chemtrails as well. And let me just preface too, I don't believe all doctors are bad. I believe a lot of them have just been deceived, honestly. I think a lot of them went in to being a doctor with the intent and purpose to help people. So please don't everybody think that all doctors are bad. They're not. I just think they're a little ignorant as to what is currently occurring, which was known to unfold on a mass scale in the end times. All medical procedures used in this healthcare system introduce negative, low-frequency energies in the patient's physical vessels and hamper them to cleanse their foul bodies, physical, emotional, mental, and earthreal. This is, however, an indispensable prerequisite to advance in the light body process and to ascend. Therefore, my strong advice as a medical doctor and an ascended master at this place: never visit a doctor as soon as you have entered the last and most intensive phase of the light body process. If you have survived the perils of this toxic planet up to the present moment and you are fully in the light body process, you are not entitled to experience physical death, but to continue augmenting your frequencies so that you can ascend at the latest on December 21st, 2012. And like I said, whether that was divinely delayed, we'll find out. But I can see that this is all happening around us as we speak if I just go by my own personal experience alone, right? This is the divine plan for this planet, and no visit to the doctor will bring you near to this end, but will only hamper your light body process. You do not need any doctors and the current healthcare system. Let your ego go of and leave the management of your body regulation and the healing of your alleged diseases to your soul, and she or he will heave you to the fifth dimension because they love you unconditionally and want the very best for you. This is my message to you. This will be the first chapter, the transformation of the 7 body chakras in the LBP, or light body process. In order to understand why human body chakras have to be completely restructured in the course of the light body process, you must know that they harbor numerous energetic malfunctions which have been inserted by the initial engineers of Homo sapiens, the Anunnaki, somewhat 13,000 years ago. and only later on improved somewhat by the Syrians and other civilizations from the Galactic Federation. As I stated before, if you're not into that stuff, totally okay. Just at least listen to the end of the article and leave that bit out if that does not resonate with you, is what I would say. Because you really do want to hear the actual physical symptoms that are associated with this, because anybody who's listening to this is on a frequency that you're probably going through this. So you're probably experiencing many of these physical symptoms. So it's worth listening till the end. The most important malfunction that must be removed at the beginning of the light body process is the blockage of the fourth heart chakra, also known as the high heart, which is the portal for the Christ energies of unconditional love in the human body. This chakra links the human entity with the harmony of the all that is. Therefore, the first and most important stage in the light body process is the opening of the fourth heart chakra, which is also the emotional center, and as I said, also known as the high heart. This chakra is blocked in most entities. I think I was born with mine open because I've always been able to love unconditionally, as a side note, and I've always been empathic. I've never understood how nobody else saw that perspective, or at least the people I encountered, most of them did not. And I think that you'll find too that a lot of us who were born with that open, you could call us starseeds or whatever you want to call us, maybe partially open, whatever, that we were placed very strategically in very specific geographical locations. And we weren't just haphazardly thrown into the biological family structures that we were. There were very specific reasons that we were placed, many of us along certain grid lines, for very specific purposes. Nothing was random, let me put it that way. And thank goodness for the internet, because we're all starting to connect, which is a beautiful thing. Let me put it that way. Again, most of people have that blocked. I think some of us who didn't have it blocked, it's very easy for us to tell those that it is blocked in. But many of those people, as a side note, I'll continue on for just a second. Before with light body phases, I do want to say something really quick. Before with light body phases, or the light body process, you could call it the Christ itself, rainbow bodies, the shift to crystalline from carbon-based. It has a multitude of names. You could go on forever almost. It's talked about in many different cultures, the rainbow body. Before, it was very few individuals were ever able to achieve that stage of enlightenment. You've heard about some monks who were able to achieve the rainbow body. In fact, I just found an instance of a monk that was able to attain the rainbow body, and his dog as well, which I thought was great, because my dog seems to be going through whatever process that I am. It's a very interesting process. But that being said, not everyone is going to do this in the same way at the same time. And before, very few individuals could achieve that. And it really had to come from a lot of hard work. Very few people are talking about Buddha and maybe Gandhi and some monks and Jesus. But you had to, there were these tests and trials that you had to go through. And it was really through the cosmic universe. But my point now is, with the mass awakening that's happening, the energies flooding the planet, some would call them gamma waves, or Christ energies, or source energy, God energy, whatever you want to call that floats your boat. Now, this gets a little funky. Some of us were sent specifically to help at this time. Let me put it that way. And many of us were awoken or activated, however you'd like to say that, at very specific times. And now, versus you would have to do this very independently through cosmic energies, God energy, whatever. Now, we are being given the gift that we can activate others just by connecting with them. And it does not even have to be physically. You don't even have to now be in somebody's physical space to activate them. A lot of people stumble across my channel and they get activations just by watching what I'm putting out, or somebody else's channel or something else. A lot of people are getting activations by watching movies, and there's, whatever they're led to in their own process. Everybody's got a very individual and unique process. That being said, we now can affect the collective by activating each other. And I tell people all the time, there's not one master code that you can type in that will activate the entire process. DNA is, in some essences, codings. They all have a code, so to speak, is my personal opinion on that. And you almost have to earn them, so to speak. And everybody's got an individual process on how they earn their own activations. But by connecting with others at this time, it's spreading. The light is spreading. It's spreading like a virus almost, but the best virus we've ever seen, you know, and that's a gift. That is a gift that we have been given by God, source, whatever you want to call that, your higher self, whatever works for you. At this time, that is why it's written about in every prophecy on the planet. They call it end times. And I don't like that word because a lot of people don't add the back end on that. It is an end time of a certain specific structure that we have had in place, but it is the beginning time of a new structure, of a new time of enlightenment, where we are going to be able to see through the deception, the control, and the manipulation techniques that have been the foundation of this world for a very long time. And most people are in this stage of just waking up from the matrix, so to speak. Will there be people who, like in the movie, you know, like the guy who was the traitor, who turned on, you know, Neo and everybody, and he said, I just want to eat that fake steak because I would rather taste the fake steak than the reality of what is. I'm the opposite. I'd rather have the reality, whatever that is, versus an illusion. Like, that just doesn't work for me. I'm not somebody who's ever not going to be into the truth. I need the truth. That's how I function. But you will have people who enter the process that will then say, I don't want to do this. I'd rather go back to the illusion. There's no wrong answer for anybody. You know, everybody has their own evolutionary path for their soul. And so there is no, it kind of cracks me when people say they don't believe in evolution, because it's like, we all evolve in every minute of every day, you know, and I'm not talking in Big Bang versus evolution. I'm not really going to go there, but we all evolve every minute of every day. We all adapt, we all learn, we all grow, and everybody has a soul that is learning and growing. So with that being said, you know, a lot of people are waking up from the matrix, or waking up in this kind of nightmarish state where, you know, there's phases in light body phases, which I will be doing another article that talks about the 12 phases of the light body process. And that's more of a, I would say, almost a psychological look at those phases. But it's almost like I say the stages of grief. There's a specific process almost that people go through. And when most people awaken, they end up awakening furious as they look around them and see all the deception and see all the illusions starting to crumble. And as you can see right now, in the last year or 6 months, there's been more disclosure items coming forward on every level, from politics to healthcare to UFOs to quantum physics, sacred geometry, you name it, the light body processes that I'm showing. Everybody's bringing forth their puzzle pieces at this time. And it's a lot of information to take in. And everybody has a different reality, so to speak. As we get further into this article, you'll understand a little bit more why. But our thoughts manifest our realities to some degree. And so you have to keep in mind that nobody's answer is wrong, because everybody's reality is different and based off their experiences and their beliefs and their thought processes. But what we need to be able to recognize as a collective at this time is that all of the illusions are falling. And so anything that was built off of an illusion will no longer be valid. And there will be those that don't wish to have their illusions broken. And so, you know, you just have to, you know, to each his own, so to speak. And you have to respect another individual's right to their reality and their existence, with respect and love and patience. You know, at some point, will there be a major event? And this author does discuss that. Yes. And I think it's going to hit this summer is my guess. Just with the physical symptoms that I'm showing on my channel with the light body process, there will be, in just a couple of weeks or very soon, no denying, even to the most awakened individual, that there is a very physical change happening on this planet. If somebody just stands next to me in the sun, they can try and blame it on their eyes all they want, but they're going to see some weird stuff. Just saying. So, that being said, let us continue on. The chakra is blocked in most entities, and for this reason, most of them are not in the position to experience unconditional love. How many people do we know like that? Just saying, like my dude. He did not trust that I was trying, he didn't trust the love I was trying to give him for 3 years almost. It's taken me pounding on that door every day to let him truly understand that that was not a trick. Because a lot of people also have cellular memories and traumas from either this life or past lives. And in this life, a lot of people have to clear all this stuff in a hurry. So a lot of individuals or entities came in this life with the express purpose to clear all of these past traumas, because you can't carry all that crap with you anymore. You're not going to allow to be allowed to be triggered in these higher realms. And really, if you want to get into dimensions, they're just levels of consciousness, so to speak, that actually can get very complicated and layered if you get into quantum physics and some other issues, but we're going to keep it there for this video. But it's taken him a while for that high heart to start to open, where he is now starting to trust that unconditional love and to be able to receive it. And here's the thing, nobody can give it until they receive it. You know, it's like you can't love somebody else until you love yourself. And so a lot of people are just in this process. So be very kind and gentle and patient with them and compassionate as they go through this process. Back to the article. Most of the problems that light workers have nowadays, and I don't even love the word light workers as a side note. So if you hear that, it throws you off, just put it, just put in whatever makes you feel better. Put it that way. Most of the problems that light workers have nowadays, or are discussed in their channeled messages, can be attributed to this blockage and gradual opening of the fourth heart chakra. The vast majority of human entities do not have these problems because their heart chakra is closed and will stay so in many of them. Purely for this reason, they will not ascend. I'm hoping that we can alter that. I'm hoping that enough of us become awakened and get that open, that will spread like wildfire. I really do, because everybody deserves that. Everybody deserves to be able to feel unconditional love and get it. The advantage of having a closed heart chakra in the past was that one did not have to cope with the many psycho-emotional problems which most light workers are currently encountering while cleansing their personal dross from their past incarnations and that of humanity. Excuse me. This situation has now reversed. Woo woo! Just saying. Due to the huge tides of high-frequency waves of Christed energy and the consciousness from the higher realms in preparation for ascension of Gaia and humanity, the fourth heart chakra must be opened in most human entities on Earth as to comply with these cosmic energies that determine the density of our civilization and planet. Only those entities who are able to fully open their heart chakra will ascend and accommodate to the new harmonious energies of the fourth and fifth dimensions after the Stargate 111111 that will be open in November of that year. Remember, this article was written in 2011, so just saying. The opening of the fourth chakra, or the high heart, is associated with the conscious experience of various angst fear patterns that shape the psycho-mental structure of the incarnated entity. These fears are coded in the cells in the DNA by the soul and affect human behavior in a profound and invisible manner as long as the fourth chakra is closed. Below, I will discuss the clinical and somatic symptoms associated with this massive angst experience. A lot of people also go through the dark night of the soul during that time. And I would say to anybody who is currently in that, and you can go through that more than once for people who think they got through it and it's done. Sometimes it actually will come back on you and you'll be like, oh crap, I thought I already did this. Some people will go through it many times. And hold on is what I would say. We lose, as a side note, I just discussed this earlier, we lose a lot of people during this process to suicide, insanity, deciding that they change their mind and don't want to do it anymore. And then there's those people that actually push through and say, I'm going to face this head on and deal with whatever that is. So I would say to anybody who's in that process, don't isolate yourself. It is the worst thing you can do, because also during this process, before you get to a certain point, as a side note, you are vulnerable to psychic attack. And there are other entities out there. That just because some people can't see them does not mean that they aren't there. Once you get to a certain level, in this process, you become immune to those psychic attacks. They no longer can interfere in your process. And gradually, as more and more energies flood the planet, it's becoming harder and harder for those entities to stay, so to speak. However, if you allow yourself to go to these lower vibrational energies, which is fear, hate, guilt, shame, anger, if anxiety, if you go to any of these lower vibrational energies, you'll notice that it's very easy and incredibly intense versus what it was, and that people can really go off the deep end in a second. And also with that, you are opening yourself up in some degree. It's a little more complicated, to possessions to some degree. And that's why you're seeing a lot of things on the news right now, which I don't watch for the most part at this point, but you'll see a lot of stories right now about regular everyday people who just went off the deep end and killed their whole family. And they're like, God told me to do it, or I was possessed by a demon, or I was hearing voices, or, some people, we can get into MK Ultra with that later, but not for this article. What I'm saying though is be very careful if you allow yourself. You have to feel the emotions that you feel, because you have to process them and release them and heal them. However, you need to be very careful about not being stuck in that area, and being very cognizant or very aware when you are experiencing that why you're experiencing it, and you're only doing so to release it. You just need to be very clear about that, is what I would say. Because there are other things out there, and they're getting a little desperate, because as more and more people are leaving those lower vibrational energies, they're going to try and hold on to, or get a meal. You could say they're parasitic in some respect, in any way that they can. And so they're just very desperate, and they're grasping at straws, which means if you fall in there, they're going to grasp at you. So I would just be really clear. There are two crystals that I have found to be incredibly helpful with avoiding psychic attack, or that will help you keep a stronger field around you, so to speak. One is black tourmaline, and the other one is smoky topaz. Rose quartz is an unconditional loving crystal. So, but if you want to, I have 2 rings, a smoky topaz and a black tourmaline ring, that I keep on me all the time. And I found to be incredibly helpful during that period for me. A lot of it just comes down to awareness though. And like I said, once you reach a certain point, you become invisible to those energies and untouchable, and they're not allowed to interfere with you. You become protected or sealed almost. So just be aware of that, and that does get better. So anybody who is in the dark night of the soul, we've all been there. We all get to the point where we're standing on that cliff. I think almost all of us have contemplated not being here, or thought we were losing our minds. As you go through this process, your third eye also opens. And with that, you start to see things that you have been told your entire life are not possible to be reality. It's like walking through the looking glass in Alice in Wonderland. But you're not crazy. You're not losing your mind. You're becoming more aware. You're becoming able to see fully. And it was explained to me in one of my messages. It's like deep sea diving. They couldn't take us from where we were to where we're going. God, whoever you want to say that. A benevolence, not a bad thing. They couldn't do it in a snap. They couldn't do it in a heartbeat moment, because we would have lost our minds or not been able to deal with that. I was explained, they had to bring us up like we were deep sea diving, little bits at a time, so that we could integrate it, understand it, and not freak the F out. And so that, we wouldn't, like when people come up too fast for deep sea diving, they'll get the bends and die. That's a definite real possibility. And a lot of people would not have been able to handle that. So little bits at a time, and it's very individual per each individual soul. Everybody has a team that works with them. Everybody has guides and helpers and ancestors, higher selves, whatever you want to call that are helping you at this time. Everybody does. So just know you are never truly alone. You can't be. You just can't. We are part of everything. And so it's not even possible for us to be truly alone. It's just we have been told that over and over in every possible way, through subliminal messages, through technologies we didn't even know existed. we're being inundated with that over and over, that we are separate, 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 that we have to go outside of ourselves to look for that connection to God. And it is the opposite of what reality is. The church is within you. It's within the rocks, the trees, the soil, the earth. God is within everything, including us to some regard. You know, everybody has access internally to God. You don't have to give up a tenth of your income and sit in a pew in a church where it's very possible that one of the biggest, you know, hypocritical people is claiming to be, you know, getting their messages straight from God. Crap. That's bull crap. You can get messages straight from God by not going anywhere outside of yourself. And that's the biggest message that people need to understand right now. Because there was, I believe, a false ascension that was trying to be pushed through at this time through that, you call it the NAA, negative alien agenda, or demonic forces, or whatever, even just the power elites, whatever you want to call that. But there is a true ascension as well. And we do not have to die at this time like we had to before, like when Jesus, he had to die. We are being offered the chance to accept our grace again, to accept that connection again in a way that we have not been able to do for a very, very, very long time. Let me put it that way. That was a very long-winded side note. I apologize. So, moving on. The opening of the fourth chakra is associated with the conscious experience of various angst fear patterns that shape the psychomental structure of the incarnated entity. These fears are coded in the cells in the DNA by the soul and affect human behavior in a profound and invisible manner as long as the fourth chakra is closed. Below, I will discuss the clinical and somatic symptoms associated with this massive angst experience. Here, I will give you some technical information on the opening of the fourth chakra, which you may not find in any other book or channeled message on this issue. As you may know, this chakra is associated with the thymus. This organ is in front of the lungs and is rudimentary in most human beings. It is not evolved at all. When the fourth chakra begins to open, the thymus starts to grow. At a later stage, this can even be determined by CT. The growth of the thymus is associated with chest pains, asphyxia, acute episodes of severe bronchitis and pneumonitis, which are erroneously diagnosed as flu or pneumonia by most doctors who have no idea of light body process and ascension. As a side note, how many people ended up in the hospital last year with severe bronchial issues? Everybody in my family ended up in big trouble with that. I was, for the first time, did not catch a cold or get sick. And here's what I noticed too. For those that are awakened and have their high hearts opened, when you come around somebody who has not been activated yet, let me put it that way, I would get a call from somebody I hadn't hung out with in years. And I hung out with them for a night, and I would get a text or a call the very next day and say, geez, I hope I didn't get you sick. I'm coughing up crap today, and I'm just really sick, and I didn't even feel it coming on, right? And that is because I activated them. And here's the thing. When you start coughing up stuff in that, once you've been activated, you'll notice it's very different than a normal bronchial infection. Normal bronchial, quote, infections, you cough up stuff that just looked phlegmy. Let me put it that way. It would be like brown or green or gross, right? Yellow. When you are activated, you can tell if you've been activated and you're coughing stuff up. It's a very different substance. It's bubbly. I don't know how to explain that in a different way. I tell people it's like packing bubbles almost. You can't even pop those bubbles. It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. And you almost feel like you're choking. Like it's just stuck in the back of your throat. It's really crazy. And it's not just that you'll cough it up. You'll notice it comes out when you blow your nose as well. It's just a very strange substance. And in 42 years, I'd never seen anything like it. And I worked for doctors, so I'd seen about everything. Let me put it that way. So just be aware when you activate other people, they might say, oh, right after you talk to them, they'll say, oh, I have a cold, and just so you're aware, it's probably not a cold. But that's a good thing. It's a great thing to be activating these people because you're only spreading awareness. I mean, it will be a beautiful thing, but they might be kind of sick in the interim. So just be supportive and compassionate during the process. The more you know and are aware, the more you can help them. I wasn't going to put any of my opinions in here. I'm really sorry. Like, apparently I just can't stop talking. Okay. The most disturbing symptom is, however, heart eurythmia. And last year, especially, as another side note real quick, tons of people were having heart eurythmias and going to the hospital from acute panic attacks, anxiety attacks, or just heart eurythmias. And the doctors couldn't find a cause for it, couldn't find a reason for it. And it really freaked out a lot of people. Again, I don't want anybody's liability. So if you have a heart eurythmia and you think you need to get it checked out, right? Right. But also just be aware that this is part of the process, and it's been very intense for the last 6 months or so, I would say, for most people. This is due to the adjustment of the heart regulation to the new powerful astral energies, which now flow unrestricted in the physical body after the fourth chakra, or high heart, has been opened. This eurythmia can last from 6 months up to 1 year. Mine only lasted a couple weeks, to be honest. And that's when I was 19. Just saying. They did try and put me on a bunch of medications, though, just so we're all aware. And I would recommend highly against that, unless you have a very specific medical issue. I'm just saying. When I first wrote about this symptom in my book, Evolutionary Leap of Mankind, in 2001, this phenomenon was completely unknown. In the meantime, I have many friends who have entered this stage and are now complaining about heart eurythmias, which is always associated with fear bursts that aggravate the mental situation of the entity. I can say that was true in my case. I'd never actually thought about it, but it was true in my case. I was in a really dark time in my life, I would say, at 19. They usually run to the doctor and get prescribed a beta blocker or an antiarrhythmic drug, which increase mortality, and hinder the light body process, as I have already explained above. Therefore, it is very important that the entity should know exactly what is going on during the light body phase and should not succumb to his or her fears and believe themselves to be ill and visit physicians. This is a huge problem nowadays that impedes the light body process. I can assure you that the transient eurythmia episodes are absolutely harmless and disappear without any treatment as soon as the opening of the fourth chakra is completed. However, one can make use of the beta blockers intermittently when such symptoms occur. The advantage of a beta blocker, preferably metoprolol, I'm going to spell that because I think I said it terribly wrong, metoprolol, metoprolol, I don't think I said that right still, is that it, at the same time, has a sedating and calming effect and mitigates the acute fear experience that is associated with an LBP-induced heart eurythmia. And I'm going to go on a limb here and say I live in Washington State, so it's legal. I find that marijuana or cannabis does exactly the same thing, and actually will help your appetite and make you very hungry, and you can take a nap, and you can calm down, and it's totally fine. That's my own personal opinion. I'm just saying. And it's legal here, so I don't want to get a bunch of emails saying a bunch of crap about it. But you must restrict the use of the metoprolol, I'm still saying that terribly wrong, only to the acute fear episodes, as this drug is rather toxic when chronically administered. I would really preface to tell everybody, if you can get off all your medications safely, I highly encourage everybody to try to, because it's been one of the best things that ever happened to me. And I didn't think I'd be able to get off some of those ever in my entire life. I was told I wouldn't be able to, and now my doctors are like, I don't even know how you did that. The above information is extremely important for anybody who enters this last and most intensive phase of the light body process. According to my observation, the opening of the fourth heart chakra has reached many light workers, adult and old souls, in the autumn of 2009 and has been progressing at a rapid pace since then. In 2011, most light workers have experienced a peak in this cardiac symptom associated with the opening of this chakra. The broad population is now following this avant-garde of mankind, as the influx of high-frequency waves from the central sun of our galaxy has significantly increased in the course of this summer and will peak in October and November during the shift and ascension of Gaia and humanity to the fourth and fifth dimension after the Stargate 111111 will be opened. Most of these energies of ascension can only enter the physical body through the heart chakra. This is a key event in the LBP in the end times, which is unfortunately not really discussed by most channels. I haven't really heard it discussed on almost any channels, at least not in such a way as to promote the understanding of the light workers. It is a pity, as this topic is of great practical relevance and existential urgency, I agree, for most light workers who need a good professional advice with respect to their clinical symptoms which they cannot adequately interpret. This would have been great for me to know a year ago, just saying. As soon as these two hurdles are surmounted, the light body process can then truly unfold. This is associated with the opening of the 6th and 7th body chakra, which are in most cases closed, in most entities. Sorry. Just for your information, before the soul incarnates, she or he makes a decision on the energetic characteristics of the incarnated entity. One very important decision is which chakras should be the dominant ones. I think it's fair to say anybody who knows me or who has heard me speak would say my throat chakra is probably a very dominant chakra because I never shut up. So, you know, I have no fear on saying anything to anybody, especially if I'm the only one. I'll go against 20,000 people. It really doesn't. That must be dominant for me. As you may know, chakras are energetic rotational wave systems which play an intermediary role and convey the higher frequency, life-supporting astral energies of the causal body through the ethereal body into the electromagnetic waves of the organic body. I'm going to say that again because I think I said it wrong a bit. As you may know, chakras are energetic rotational wave systems which play an intermediary role and convey the higher frequency, life-supporting astral energies of the causal body through the ethereal body into the electromagnetic waves of the organic body. In this way, the incessant regulation of the biological organism is taking place at any point in time. This is an extremely complex process of energy exchange, which is virtually unknown to present-day bioscience. I have made some major contributions to the understanding of this process in my book, The General Theory of Biological Regulation, Volume 3. However, it is not necessary to know this theory in order to begin with the light body process. This book is for those scientists who will not go through the light body process, but must have a theoretical idea of what is happening currently on Earth so that they may eventually qualify for ascension after 2012. And now comes an information you may not have heard yet. The soul decides which two chakras should be dominant in the entity. This means that the astral energy flows predominantly through these two chakras at a ratio of 70 to 30% in the human body. In most entities, only the lower three chakras are dominant. The first chakra, the bottom chakra and the instinctive center, is associated with the suprarenal gland, where the adrenal and noradrenal production is located. Excuse my foul on that. This chakra is responsible for the activation of the self-preservative instincts and survival patterns of the entity. These survival instincts are currently massively deleted, as they will no longer exist in the fifth dimension. These instincts are associated with the carbon-based human bodies, which will be transformed into crystalline light bodies after ascension. These spheres are responsible for numerous clinical symptoms, which I will discuss in the next chapter. The second chakra, the sexual center, sexual organs, and the third chakra, which is the power chakra, which is associated with the liver, pancreas, and stomach, are responsible for the expression of the vital forces of the entity in the three-dimensional material reality on this planet. These chakras are well developed in most young souls, which represent the majority in the current population. For further information, see Evolutionary Leap of Mankind and the article Ascension 2012, The Ongoing Scenario. The dominance of the lower chakras in the broad population can be observed in the irrational behavior of most human entities, which will culminate in the fall of this year. I believe that is the fall of this year, honestly, as a side note. When the financial collapse will first take place, and then the knowledge of the coming shift in ascension, as the Stargate 111111, will finally reach the minds of the most incarnated human entities on this planet, which are currently vegetating in a deep slumber. As I said, I think we were granted a delay, so that is all taking place now. I believe this fall is going to be, I'm so sorry, I just heard my dog in the background, will be insane. I think you'll see some major stuff tip off this fall. It is rather easy for any enlightened observer to discern which entities in his surrounding are acting and reacting. Reacting is huge as a side note. Exclusively from their lower chakras because their upper chakras are closed, and which entities are behaving from their opened unified chakra, as I shall explain below. This is a very good mental exercise in spiritual discernment, which I will recommend to all of my readers. The fifth intellectual chakra, the thyroid gland, is currently selected. I lost my place, so I'm not sure. The fifth intellectual chakra, the thyroid gland, is currently selected as a dominant in growing number of people, hence the huge number of scientists nowadays, which exceeds the number of all scientists who have ever lived in the past. This chakra is associated with the dominance of the left brain, which is responsible for the hallucinatory perception of 3D space-time, as the information coming from the limited human senses is processed in the left brain hemisphere. The sixth spiritual chakra, the pituitary gland, and the seventh ecstatic chakra, which is the pineal gland, are closed in most entities upon birth. And with fluoride, they like to keep it closed and other, stuff like that as a side note. They are closed in most entities upon birth, with the exception of the crystalline children born after 2000. This is the actual blockade of the incarnated personality from the higher self and the reason for the lack of medial abilities and spirituality in most human beings on earth. It is the actual cause for the so-called, quote, veil of forgetfulness. The reason for this common energetic malfunction is the necessity for the incarnated entity to concentrate on 3D life on Earth and live in the illusion that he or she is a separated individual. When the LBP really commences, these two chakras must be opened in the first place so that the two glands begin to grow. In the esoteric literature, these two upper chakras are referred to as the third eye by putting them together in one functional term. This is not wholly wrong, as they operate in a coordinated fashion. At a later stage, the hypertrophy of the two brain glands can be detected by CT, and this is an irrefutable proof for the progress of the LBP and the existence of higher realms of creation, or scientific proof of God. When the sixth and seventh chakras are fully opened, the left brain, being responsible for most human hallucinations, especially for the separation of the incarnated entity from the soul and source, is completely restructured. As a side note, I can attest to that because every part of my body is restructured. My blood, my saliva, my healing processes, my skin, you name it, and I show that in proof on my channel. In my case, this happened in 1999. After that, the left brain hemisphere begins to operate as a huge individual left brain portal for high frequency energies from the highest realms, respectively from the 8th to the 14th chakras of the causal center of the soul. For further information on the brain function, see also my article on psychedelic drugs. The incarnated human entity begins to hear the high-frequency metallic hum of the rapidly rotating higher chakras, 8th to the 14th, which, as a side note, is why so many people are saying that ringing in my ears is driving me crazy, right? How many people have experienced that ringing when it starts? It's either this crazy high-pitched hum that is so crazy it actually will close your ear, right? I tell people it's really important, too, to pay attention what you're doing right then, because sometimes you're being asked to pay attention to whatever that is and take note. Or sometimes it's just you're shifting to a higher frequency. I tell people too. So the incarnated human entity begins to hear the high frequency metallic hum of the rapidly rotating higher chakras, which are the 8th to the 14th, predominantly in the left ear and around the head. This hum does not come from the astral energies, as they are beyond the electromagnetic spectrum and cannot be perceived by the human ear. The hum is a byproduct of the air molecules which are involved in the rapid rotations of these astral energies. In this way, the gas molecules collide more often with each other and thus create this high-frequency metallic hum. You will not find this physical explanation anywhere else. Therefore, it is not a coincidence that many light workers in the LBP are erroneously treated for sinusitis. I don't know if I said that right. I always say that wrong, I think. That ringing in the ear thing. There you go. The energy flow through the left brain portal is like a column of about 20 to 30 centimeters in diameter. It flows throughout the whole body, along the vertebral column, and reaches all other chakras. This energy, which some channels describe as Ka, Ka, and others as Kundalini, most of us have heard of that, exits the human body through the heels. And that's why a lot of people, too, when they really get their energies going, will say, I can like feel that energy in my feet. My feet are tingling, right? In this way, it merges the lower 3 chakras with the energy field of Gaia. As Gaia's field has been augmented now to the 4th and lower 5th dimensions, so do the 3 lower chakras of the incarnated entity in the light body process. Finally, I must add that there are 2 further minor chakras, which must also be fully developed in the light body process before the unified chakra could be built. The first one is situated about 20 centimeters below the first bottom chakra, and the second one around the knees. This is very important information as it explains why so many light workers in the light body process suffer from severe joint pains in the knees for at least 1 or more years. I would like to add a side note to that, and I was using a cane by the time I was 30 because my knees were so bad. I'd been in and out of the doctor my entire life since the time I think I was in 7th grade for knee issues. I'd had tons of x-rays and CTs and you name it, not CTs, but imagings done of my knees, and nobody could ever find any MRIs, any reason why my knees were so painful or acting that way. They couldn't figure it out. And for me, they just medicated me, of course. Nothing helped with that until my awakening started, and I started using Sapphagio frequencies and Ormus and tuning into that side of things. For the first time since I was 19, I do not have to take pain medication for my knees. I don't use a cane. And my unawakened guy even said to me last summer started, that's the first time I've not heard you complain about your knees, because they would get so much worse when it would get hot. So it's just a testament and a side note for people and validation to this author that there is something to be said for that, and you can get past that. If I can get past that, anybody in the world can get past that. Really, if I can do it, anybody can. As many people are fully unaware of this fact, they go to orthopedists and let themselves be operated on the knees for various wrong reasons, such as degenerative arthritis. Yeah, they tried to say that too with me. I'm just saying. Now, after your chakra is fully built, these pains will disappear forever. I can attest to that. I haven't had any knee pains for the last 1.5 years, almost 2 years. The building of the unified chakra. When the 4th chakra is fully opened, it encompasses the lower 3 chakras and brings them in alignment with the 3 upper chakras, which transmit intellectual 5th chakra and inspirational 6th chakra and ecstatic 7th chakra energies. In this way, a unified chakra is built, which rotates with a much higher velocity and is able to transmit much more and higher frequency energies in the 4 bodies of the incarnated entity. This leads automatically to the elimination of many local blockades and fear-based patterns of low vibration according to the laws of constructive and destructive interference, as explained in my last book, The Cosmic Laws of Creation and Destruction. The building of a unified body chakra is a cornerstone in the light body process. When this stage is reached, the entity has fully qualified for ascension. This does not, however, mean that the light body process is finished, as there is no upper limit in this process. The entity may continue to ascend beyond the 5th dimension while still dwelling in a physical vessel. And as I've said, as a side note, we are being offered that for the first time. Like I said, it used to be you had to go through the death process with your physical body, and I keep being told that this is the first time in history that we are being allowed to go through this process with our physical bodies. So a lot of those people who are like, I want out, Be very careful with what you're thinking and saying, because you don't have to go out and you can have complete and total health without leaving your physical body. Just as a side note. This aspect is not well understood in esoteric circles. An incarnated entity may have already ascended to the fifth dimension according to current standards, but he or she may still stay in a physical vessel and continue augmenting their body frequencies beyond this level. In this case, the entity will reach, after the final transformation of his physical body, into light body, the 6th to 8th dimensions, and even well beyond that. If we quantify the levels of vibration in terms of octaves, and I would tell everybody lean close because this is good. And this is very, let me just I'll read it, you take it however you want it, but this to me struck a huge chord. If we quantify the levels of vibrations in terms of octaves, the light body of an ascended master on Earth may vibrate beyond the 144 octave of universal creation. Did you hear that? 144. Okay? Which is also the octave of the crystalline grid of ascending Earth. And what did we hear about in the Bible? The 144,000, right? The 144 grid vibrates with the frequencies of the highest fifth dimensional levels. The 144 grid of Earth will be completed by about 93% when the Stargate 111111 is open in the fall of that year. This vibrational level will be sufficient for the first wave of ascended masters to take place. These star seeds belong to the Planetary Ascension Team, also known as PAT, P-A-T, who will delegate their 3 lower chakras to Gaia's field and help it ascend to the 4th and 5th dimensions in November of that year. Most of the members of PAT will ascend to the higher levels of the 5th dimension or even beyond that. Some of them, as this author, will return to the interim 4D Earth and light body and will help humanity to manage this difficult transitional period. You'll hear a lot, too, as a side note, about being the bridge, being the rainbow bridge. That's, in some degree, what they're saying. There's many of us who may have already gone through this, or partially gone through this, or in the process of going through this, and we've chosen to remain here, or close by, or at some of those lower levels. I'm sure I did because I wanted to help people. You know, I love the people so much, and the animals and nature. Like, I would have done anything to help them. And so I've chosen to stay with Gaia, with the Earth, regardless of where I'm at in my process, spiritually. This will be the most dramatic cosmic event in the history of the planet and human civilization. Side note, which is why I'm getting so frustrated a little bit and pissy about it and so pushing to come forward with all of this information, because this is the biggest thing that's ever happened to humanity, and it needs to be discussed, and it needs to be on the table, and it needs to be transparent. Everybody needs to be aware of this. It is more important than anything else happening anywhere. It is a pity that the vast majority of humanity and many lightworkers have no clear idea about what is awaiting mankind in the next several months. And I do think that that is now. That is happening now, these next several months. Therefore, I urge all my readers to read or subscribe for free my articles on this and other coming events published in Breaking Astral News on my website, www.stankovuniversealllaw.com. I'll spell it, www.stankov, as in Victor, universeallaw.com. At the final star portal, 12-12-12, the crystalline 144 grid of the Earth will be completed, and this will enable the mass ascension of the majority of human incarnated entities on Earth to the lower levels of the fifth dimension. There will be, however, ascended human masters who will automatically reach the sixth and higher dimensions and will communicate with the ascended humanity in the lower fifth dimension from these higher realms, where there will be no necessity to have an individual light body, as the ascended master will be of pure energy and can create immediately any conceivable light body at his or her own discretion. The opening of the 2 higher chakras and further chakras above the human body, 8th to the 14th, paves the path for the entrance of high-frequency energies from the 5th and higher dimensions, which are associated with various symptoms and specific somatic experiences, which I will discuss in the next chapter. Let me now make the following final observation at this place, which may be already known to many of my readers. The entity cannot make a decision on the initiation of the light body process, but only the soul. That is, the individual light body process must be in the soul contract. However, only the entity can know what is in his or her own personal soul contract. No external person can discern it. But the entity may eventually hinder the planned individual light body process if he or she has not developed the proper attitude and rejects or impedes it through their irrational behavior and fearful thinking. Side note, this is why I tell people it's so important to pick love over fear right now, because you will stop the process. I just saw this video, this is a side note, but of this woman who posted, I think in May, and she was sobbing hysterically on this video, and she said, you know, I thought I was a light worker and I was into all this new age stuff, and I thought I was into the ascension, and I just need to tell everybody I was led that there's demonic beings, and yes, it just broke my heart to watch this video because she was in real crisis. And she was talking about being quarantined in her home now, and she's being attacked psychically, and she just didn't know what was real, and it just broke my heart because you could tell she was in real dark night of the soul crisis happening. I want to tell people, you have to be aware, but don't stay in fear, because you have all the power. You hold all the power. Yes, you can see those entities now as you go through this process, but you get to a point where they cannot touch you or interfere with you. You are in control. They cannot take over unless you allow them that or give them that power. Okay? So as the veils drop and more people are seeing the unseen, I'm making air quotes, don't allow yourself to get into that place and isolate yourself, because that is what they want. Like I said, they're desperate right now, and they want you to stay in those fear modes, and you will stop this process and be stuck there. And that is hell. In my opinion, that is hell. And I don't want to do that, and I don't want anybody else to do that. So the worst thing that you can do is to isolate yourself from others. That's the worst thing you can do. Make sure you have support. And if you don't have support in your physical environment, make sure that you go online and find that support. Let your intuitive voice lead you to forums or groups or web pages or whatever you need, but let other people support you and give you the love and the strength. If you can't stand on your own, let them pick you up until you can, is my best advice. Because it's when you get into those isolated areas that the suicides happen, that the insanity happens, that the break and the disassociation from your soul happens. And it doesn't have to, is my point. Like, we can help each other. And I tell people all the time, you can't save anybody else, but you can be a lighthouse for other people and guide them out of that darkness and show them that you can get to the other side of that. And it is beautiful, and it is amazing, and it is worth everything they talk about in all the prophecies. But don't allow yourself to be overcome. I don't know why I just threw that out there, but I just saw that the other day, and it really broke my heart. And there's no need for it, because there are so many of us that are awakened now that can help these other people. So that's why it's so important that these messages get out. If you do not develop the proper attitude and reject this process or impede it through your irrational behavior and fearful thinking, yes, I just said that could be a major problem. One major danger that lurks in the current rather uneducated human society is to seek medical treatment in the current healthcare system. Another side note, do not effing vaccinate at this time. It is suicide. It is absolute suicide at this time. There is nagalese in all vaccines. There is still mercury, which they're telling people there isn't, but there is. I proved my son got 62.5 micrograms at one time in his batches, and the safe adult exposure to mercury is 0.01 micrograms. So let me just put that in perspective, and that's according to our own FDA and EPA, might I just say. That was just a total side note. But yeah, please don't vaccinate at this time. It really is suicide. Look up the word nagalase, Nagalase. It is a cancerous tumor protein. And it is in every vaccine So not only are they shutting down your body's immune system, because in essence what it does is shut down your body's immune system, stops your body from creating something called GCMAF, and it stops your body from being able to absorb vitamin D, which we all need that. And right now I suggest everybody have some, a few minutes in the sun each day. It's been the best thing that's happened for me. For the first time in, since I was 19, I can go out in the sun and actually feel better and not pay for that for days at a time. I actually used to get white spots all over my skin as well, and it would make my lupus stuff just 1,000 times worse for days. Sometimes I actually really wouldn't even be able to walk afterwards for a few days because my knees would get so bad. But I encourage everybody to look up NAGLIs, to do your own research. It cannot be in vaccines by accident. It can only be bioengineered. It is as specific as a bomb coming from another country to a very specific bus bench on New York City on a specific day, down to the second, right? So don't put that in your body. It'll shut down your immune system and flood it with cancerous tumor proteins at the same time. And if you don't believe me, I have an article, which I will try and link here, that talks about the 60 plus doctors that have been murdered who have tried to come forward with that in the last year and a half. So that was just a total side note. I apologize, but everybody needs to know that. Please don't vaccinate at this time. Please don't. Plus, autism has gone from 1 in 10,000, complete other side note, to 1 in 25, which is like a quarter of our children, almost. It rises over 300% annually. And if people are really so blind as to believe that has nothing to do with vaccines at this point, then there's no help for you. But it absolutely does. I had a regressive autistic child. I'll go way into that on a different video. It has everything to do with it. And by 2025, they're saying if we continue vaccinating at the rate that we are doing, half, again, I'm going to say that for all the slow people in the back, half of all children will be autistic by 2025, according to MIT, if we do not do something. So let's just all keep that in mind too. But, where were we? However, only the entity can know what is in his or own personal soul contract, and no external person can discern it. But the entity may eventually hinder the planned individual light body process if he or she has not developed the proper attitude, I said that, but I'm going to say it again, or rejects and impedes it through their irrational behavior and fearful thinking. One major danger that lurks in the current rather uneducated human society is to seek medical treatment. Like I said that before, but this is really important. In the current healthcare system, whenever one experiences a somatic symptom or believes to have the right to complain about such. Instead, you should have much more faith in the healing abilities of your soul and let go of your ego, which wants to control everything, first and foremost, your physical body. The ego loves to control the human body despite the fact that it has absolutely no idea as to how it is really regulated. Its astral regulation by the soul is, so to say, free lunch for the ego. Therefore, it is always of great advantage for any entity to be fully informed and at best and scientifically correct through popular terms about the energetic mechanisms of the light body process and its somatic manifestations. After all, it is all about energy. It's all about energy, folks. We are energy and nothing else. The internalizing of this simple fact eliminates most of the fears and emotional incompatibilities which any entity inevitably encounters in the course of the light body process. In this case, relaxation, meditation, and above all, a good portion of heavenly humor, and I second that. Laugh, laugh, laugh. Find something to do that makes you happy, that makes you laugh every day, as long as you're not hurting anything. To counterbalance the toxic madness of this planet is the very best tactic to promote the light body process. I'm going to end that for the first part of this article. Again, I hope you stay tuned because in the second part we get into the actual physical symptoms. He talked about a few in the very beginning, but he gets much more into those physical symptoms. But it is important, as I originally wasn't going to do this first part, but then I thought, how important is it for people to really understand that your medical doctors are not going to be able to help you with this? And it goes against the grain, right? How many people, as I said that, just got triggered? How many people, as I said that, just went, God, it's just so hard and so far-fetched for me to believe that, right? I mean, I still get triggered a little bit with that, and I've been through the experience to some degree. So just know that as we are going through this, There are physical symptoms that are associated with this, which are normal and okay, and you are supposed to go through those. And there is no real easy way out. Like I said, in this process, everybody has to do their own work. There's no cheating and copying from somebody else's paper. There's no, I tell everybody, nobody can get out without singing the blues. Every single individual entity has to deal with their own stuff at this time. Okay? So we all have a lot of clearing and a lot of cellular memories and traumas that we have to get rid of. And for those people who don't think that that does have an impact on your physical vessel, you're wrong, I guess is all I would say. It does, in such a more profound way than any of us had any idea. And I am living proof of that. You don't have to believe me, of course. That's your prerogative. But I would have died and was kind of dying, I guess, or just slowly getting worse and worse with my, quote, lupus, with, all of these issues that I had medically that nobody had been able to explain the entire existence of my life, But I'm Rh negative. For those that don't know, I'm A negative. And I do think Rh negatives have a different issue with their physical vessels sometimes, and medical, quote, I'm doing air quotes, issues. Now, since I addressed the spiritual side, that is what, for me, changed everything. Because my kidneys were literally shutting down. I was bleeding when I went to the bathroom heavily. They were like, we're not going to keep you out of the hospital another week. This is getting really bad. I had multiple infections throughout my body, and I was a mess. I was so sick. And what did it? Ormus, monoatomic gold, solfeggio frequencies, meditation, which I had never meditated before in my life and thought only monks do it, sitting on top of a mountaintop with their legs crossed, with their hands in that position. And I thought, there's no way I can quiet my mind, because my mind's crazy. I thought, there's no way I can do that. So I just want to say that too for people who are new to this process. Meditation can be anything that just makes you happy and takes you out of the matrix crap. It's just being able to take that moment, whether you're singing along to the radio, whether you're doing an art project, whether you're walking through nature, you're just taking a walk, whatever that is for you. It does not have to be sitting in a meditative pose and saying, for hours at a time, and not having one other thought in your head and being able to find that empty space. I want to say that too. You don't have to clear your entire mind. A lot of people think, I'm not doing it right because I can't get to that space. That's okay. That's okay. You will get there. And the more that you do this, the more the light integrates, the more you will get these answers, and the more this process will open up to you. It's kind of like a blooming flower, I say, in some ways. All those petals are connected to the stem, but you have to have the stem and the root before you can have that flower bloom open. And so you have to do the work, little bits at a time. But like I said, it will get easier and easier, and the higher perspective will become easier and easier to find as you go through the process. I'm going to cut it out there. Be so very kind and loving to one another. Be gentle and compassionate during this time. It's so important. So many people are going through that dark night of the soul, and they have experiences in their lives that we don't know, and we haven't walked in their shoes. So everybody that you come in contact with, I try to keep a general rule that I don't make anybody's existence worse for having encountered me that day. Now, when I talk to the cable company, I have to work on that because I really don't like them. Just saying, whoever answers the phone there, I feel kind of bad for. But I have another quote that I say all the time too. It's in one of my videos. Be so happy that when other people see you, it makes them happy too. And really, happiness is a higher vibration. It's that easy. Love and happiness. That will get you there. If you just try to find the love in every moment, it will get you there. All right. Peace to all. Be the change you want to see. Be kind, loving, and gentle to each other during this time. I'll catch you soon. Love ya.